Hi everyone, my name is Jules Ehrlich. I'm the General Manager of our Advanced Solutions business at Aptus. It's Pranav Shah, my colleague, Director there. We're here today to show you something perhaps a little different than what you've been seeing all week. Slightly different than Visualforce, Apex, triggers and so on. What we're about is actually bringing Excel into your world for many, many use cases that you possibly haven't dealt with before or have needed to worry about before. Excel is an incredibly desirable tool today for users. For usability, you've got the whole user interface. It's incredibly fast. It's easy. End users are just so comfortable in this environment. Training costs are low. Our traditional approach, even at Aptus, and we are a very large partner of Salesforce, we have a full quote-to-cash suite. Everything has been built just the way you guys develop today. But the fact is that a lot of users don't often go into Salesforce often enough and update their information or add their records. They're sitting out there in Excel doing standalone work. They're doing forecasting. How many salespeople in your companies simply don't update their opportunities in Salesforce? They go into Excel. They got to get the manager a forecast once a week. They sit down, they create this quick Excel spreadsheet, they send it off manually, and suddenly all the data that you need inside Salesforce is suddenly sitting outside of Salesforce. The challenges are everything is files-based. The end user data is completely standalone. It's seldom re-entered. And although Salesforce Data Loader is an incredible tool, we all use it most days, it's not suitable for most end users. You can't just simply hand it out. And what often happens in IT and admin and ops is all the administration around data is pushed directly into that group to do even simple things like territory realignments, account assignments of opportunity owners and so on, rather than allowing end users and end user region business managers to do it. So what we've done is introduce a product called Xauthor. We've had it on the market for a few years now. It is what you would call deep Excel integration. Not a connector like the old Salesforce Excel connector, but something that literally provides you an alternate user interface right on top of the platform. When you are working in Excel using Xauthor, you are inside Salesforce. Excel has no rules. There are no files, so to speak. All the permissions, all the validations, all the routing, everything that has been set up in Salesforce continues to live there. This is literally another way for people to work. So, just a few examples. ABB, they have a very complex cost modeling. Just imagine taking something that is 15 tabs wide in a spreadsheet with thousands of calculations and baking it into a set of formula fields and Apex code. It's hell of a complicated for people. What if you were simply able to leave those spreadsheets alone and get those calculations to produce results for you right inside of Salesforce instantly? We'll show you an example of that. Applied Materials. They have a sales methodology. They've had it for years. When they moved over to Salesforce and they baked everything into the Visualforce pages, nobody would use it. It was too cumbersome. Not that it wasn't well designed, it was, but people are just not used to that type of thing. They were used to doing it in Excel. They went back to Excel. They moved up above 90% of adoption. Not adoption of Excel, adoption of Salesforce. IMED calculates all their premiums for their glasses are done in Excel. Actuarial computations, very difficult to do inside of Salesforce. GE uses the product to migrate data between orgs. We'll show you an example of this in a minute. For 35 objects, all data moves simultaneously down, cross over to another org, and up in about 10 to 15, 20% of the time that you could possibly do it in something like Data Loader. Global Foundries, just a lot of sales forecasting. PayPal, you'll see what Pranav shows you in a minute, what we call an app, which is just a workbook, have 70 Xauthor applications running in what they call their lead to live process. Why? They need the cost of inaccuracy for them downstream is so significant. They needed to improve their accuracy and adoption. They put this in. They have 70 of these applications running. It has completely changed how Salesforce is being used. And finally, at Wind River, who's using a partner application, Financial Force, which I'm sure you're all aware of, again, you're dealing with really complex grids, long pages of lines that need to be updated all the time. How do you do that? So they now have put 6 applications in front of Financial Force in order to help their users update that product effectively. So some sample use cases very quickly. Salesforce adoption. If any of you are struggling with adoption in your companies, just think about this. Just pop this tool in. The implementation is insignificant. You're up and running probably in a day, a week. The apps are very quick to create. It's all point and click. You put them in and you're done. Nobody does this in Salesforce today. No one has their forecasting centralized in Salesforce. It's too difficult to do in the browser. So start to think about those types of things. Just pure raw speed. If you were in marketing and you wanted to create a campaign that has show me all contacts for all accounts where the opportunity product is in this group with these close dates, and then from these product families, and automatically create that campaign for me, it would take you about 4 hours manually in data loader. 15 seconds it will take you in Xauthor. Why? It's an unlimited object architecture. You can upload and download data from any number of objects simultaneously. So just some examples. And then finally, this group that we call sort of Excel to Force. You've got complex standalone spreadsheets. Turn them into enterprise apps for your companies. So you've got a marketing promotion spreadsheet. You've got hundreds of users using it. It's standalone. Nobody can see what the data is. You have to keep copying and pasting. This is the type of thing you use. So here are the areas in which the customers use it. Adoption, I've chatted on already. Excel to Force. Calculation will show you. Reporting. And then a lot of data administration and data migration, which we will go through. Okay. Here are the things that you should care about. 1, reusable apps. Once you've created one of these apps, you can use it. You can hand it to an end user if you need to. It's completely safe. No data integrity problems inside of Excel. You cannot sort the data out of order. Unlimited objects. As I just mentioned, pick any number of objects, related or unrelated, in any workbook. You can upload and download data automatically. It's all point and click. You can do lists, forms, or matrices. Just think about it. You're in Excel. You've got all your pick lists available. Regular, dependent, multi-select. Everything is in one place. You're real time. You're doing changes. You're updating. You hit save. It's not save files, save records, and the data is back in Salesforce automatically. So think about for your use cases that are offline. You take, we have a very large global nonprofit today. They need to distribute funds and manage grants across agencies globally that are in some remote field location. How do they do it? They do 11 sequential queries to pull the data down from all these objects that they've designed in Salesforce, and they then package it up, send it out to the field, who uses it offline in the most complicated multi-tab workbook you've ever seen. Those people fill it out, it somehow gets back to the fund, and they upload it, everything goes into Salesforce. Today, that entire process runs through mail. Very, very difficult for them to control. Every time you insert a record anywhere in Salesforce, we know what it is. We can pass it automatically from parent to child to grandchild. There is no copying and pasting of records from object to object to object. It's completely automated. Those of you who have very large record sets, or more importantly, who are doing complex in-clause operations, where you are bumping into the 20K limit, we've already bypassed that. We can chunk the queries automatically. We know exactly when you're running into over those thresholds. We simply break the queries down for you. You don't even need to know what they are. Automatically happens. Again, easily deployable to end users. You will see, Pranav will actually open the designer and show it to you in a minute, how you can sequence any number of actions, uploads, downloads, saves, user selects, anything you want. So as you're considering developing solutions for your companies, just think about what is the most practical use case or way to develop it. It will also give you a new appreciation for the Salesforce platform. Today, there are use cases on the platform you would never even consider because they need a UI more practical than what can possibly be designed in the browser. And those are the things to look at. And then a lot of spreadsheets have macros. We don't write macros. We don't really care about the macros, but they are in a lot of workbooks and companies need to use them. You can simply execute them automatically. All right, let's start with a very basic use case just so that everybody can get a feel for what this is about. We'll just pull up a simple opportunity forecast, just so we can show you the lay of the land, you can get an idea of what we're dealing with. So Pranav is just, all the templates, by the way, are not stored locally. Every single thing is stored inside Salesforce. So you create a template, what we call an app, you assign it to users or profiles, and only those people can see it. When they come in here, they log into Salesforce, they get access to their apps. Pranav's just opened it, and you get a template. When you look at this template, you see a few areas, menus at the top. So you can optimize the user experience. The user cannot work in Salesforce in anything other than what you have bounded them in this application. So you design a quick set of user menus. Hey, do you want to run a query for the user, get me opportunities? Do you want to let them select the data first? There are the fields. You can create a record or a row that has any number of fields from any number of related objects. You can do side-by-side editing. You can update a grandchild, child, parent record all simultaneously. So let's start by pulling down some records. Pull them, grabs me all of my opportunities. How does it know what to get? Running through the standard API, grabbed your permissions, knows who you are, gets your opportunities, same as you were in Salesforce. I want to make a few updates. So pick lists, everything shows up automatically. And just think about users who are working in this UI. This is how people are used to working. Simple lists, make changes, change a few dates. And now I hit save data, and Salesforce is up to date. It doesn't matter if there were 2 or 200,000 records that you're doing here. Everything is up to date automatically. If validation rules need to fire, they will fire and alert the user the same as in the browser. If you have collisions, 2 people updating the record at the same time, what Salesforce does today is it says, sorry, someone else has modified this since you last retrieved it, pushes you back to the beginning. We check it at a field level, because when you've got 1,000 records, you can't have collisions stopping you from saving. So we check at a field level. If you change the stage, I change the amount, it lets the record pass. So we've done some things to really optimize the way that people can actually work. If you want to add records, lookups are automatically supported. Now look at this lookup. Sorry, it's okay, I will come to another one earlier. When you're looking at a lookup, you can create these types of lookups where you can mine data from Salesforce. This whole thing would take, the whole application would take you 7 minutes to create these lookup windows to quickly find what you want, accounts, products, anything, 15 seconds to do these types of things. So let's select one, record, inserted, done. Any number of records. You could go to another spreadsheet, copy and paste, simply paste them in here, hit save, the data would upload automatically. You can have any number of columns. You can see on the bottom in contacts, it first ran the query to grab my opportunities, and then it said, do a reverse query. Find the accounts for those opportunities, and go run a second query to grab me my contacts, pull them back. So what does this tell you? It tells you that this product is task-based rather than object-based. You've got a task to do, pull all the data that that person needs right at that moment in time, lay it out however you want, in forms, lists, matrices, and let them do their work. You could pull accounts, contacts, opportunities, cases, and campaigns, simultaneously put them in the same tab, put them in multiple tabs, and let people just do their work, rather than going one record at a time, updating a few fields. You can do calculations, you can do lookups, you can do charts. So people can automatically, any amount of reporting that you need. Okay, so you've got the general layout of how this product works. Let's look at something a little more interesting. What are we going to open up now? We're going to open up clinical trials. So here's a company that does clinical trials. This may take a few seconds to open. It's a massive spreadsheet. But just think about how many of these you have in your company. Multi-tab, data is strewn all over the place. It's probably been added onto over 15 years of development. But same thing applies. We do a search, pick something from Salesforce, or obviously create it on the fly, and watch what happens. The data populates. Again, now it's populating all over the place. Let's make a few changes here. Now this is important. You'll see what is actually going to take place. Instead of just updating a single object at a time, let's make a couple of changes here, one more down there, and how about one more even at the bottom, Pranav, if you don't mind. Now when you hit update, take a look at the result here. 4 records got updated on 4 separate objects simultaneously. So you can now design something that has really got incredibly flexible usability for the user. In fact, they never even left the spreadsheet they were always using for the last N years, but now the data is centralized in Salesforce. Any number of people can use these templates simultaneously. Do you want to show revenue scheduling?
Sure. So I'm going to show you another app, very similar to what we've seen so far. But it's a different kind of presentation. The task here, which the developer was challenged and why they ended up building this, was they needed a very sophisticated matrix-like layout for revenue scheduling and the quantity scheduling as well. I'm going to pick something, again, the similar look and feel of what you've seen so far. You can pick very quickly your opportunity. I'm going to search for the right one here. And let's say this is an opportunity. There are some products which are coming straight from opportunity products. I can make changes. Things which are marked as read-only, obviously are just read-only. You can notice that some of these products have a schedule over here. And very quickly, what you see down here is matrix representation of your data out of the box coming from Salesforce. It read all the timeline when the delivery schedule is. You can tweak your schedules. Based on that, you can even tweak your revenue schedules. Very quickly, if I make 3 changes, even though I make the changes in the same row, they are really 3 different records. So every single cell in these 2 bottom matrix grids is actually a record coming from Salesforce. So you can choose some records to be marked to be savable on the matrix. You can choose some records to be read-only. So notice that very quickly I changed 3 records, and the headers also could be read-only or savable. Very simple representation, single sheet, but this takes about 5 minutes to build in XAuthor, and would have taken obviously much longer to build it in Visualforce or any other technology. So it's a great complementary solution for some of the requirements which are, just different and difficult.
All right, let's look at something way more complex for a minute. Let's open up data migration.
Sure.
And we're going to show you 2 more apps, and then we're going to open the designer. So this application is about migrating data between 2 Salesforce orgs in really a fraction of the time that it would ordinarily take you.
So when this opens up, what this is happening right now, it's pulling not only the template, it has about 34 different objects in it. And it's synchronizing all the pick lists real time. If I turned on the fiddler, you would see the traces going on. And once it synchronizes, because the apps could be built a year ago, months ago, and it also synchronizes the record types, the record type pick list, and even the dependent pick list. Once this opens up, you will notice that, again, same architecture of XAuthor, but it has, beneath the covers, it uses a sophisticated action flow, which are now auto-generated because it reads the hierarchy of your objects. So for example, if you wanted to add opportunity product, and let's say even account and contacts. So once you add those 4 objects, it determines the dependencies between the objects. It proposes you how to add those objects in the right sequence, and it even gives you automatic searching capabilities at the account. You can cherry pick your accounts and just migrate selective data, and obviously migrate all the data. It's taking a little longer with this internet to load the load and synchronize it. Again, you have an ability to turn off the synchronization of pick lists if you know that you just want to do the migration of data. So give it another maybe 5 seconds to load.
Otherwise, you can switch into Salesforce for a second.
Okay, it's up. So once this template opens up, I'm going to show you what it really did, all the synchronization, all the sheets that it got down.
Or not. Why don't we come back to it, and why don't you go into Salesforce for a second, and let's look at the calculator.
Sure.
Okay. Everything that you've seen so far, the user is inside of Excel, on the desktop, doing something, manipulating data, looking at reporting data. What if you simply want to call Excel as a service, running in the cloud, you want to do some complex calculation, you want to calculate profitability, internal rates of return, deal scoring, cost models, whatever it is, on a multi-tab spreadsheet that has thousands of formulas and references and lookups and what have you, okay? But you never want the user to ever open that spreadsheet. So Pranav is here, he's in an opportunity, and you can see that the internal rate of return field and the net present value fields are blank.
Okay, so I made a few changes, as you saw, and I'm going to hit this button. What this is happening right now is, again, this UI is enabled through Lightning, even through your mobile devices. What happens right now is it fires the same XAuthor engine in the cloud. It does a calculation, and obviously this is in the cloud, not dependent on my connection here. Takes about 5 seconds, does the calculation. Notice that it calculated the internal rate of return, net present value, and it also dropped an attachment here if somebody wants to take a look at the auditing as to how it arrived at that value. And I'm going to open that one. Now this one's up as well.
So just a couple of things here. What's really happening is that you can decide any number of inputs from any number of objects to feed into that spreadsheet as though the user had opened that spreadsheet on the desktop. We simply take those inputs, we surface that spreadsheet in the cloud. For 2 seconds, it opens, feeds the data in, it does its regular calculation, shuts it down, brings the data back. And the data can be of 2 types. It can be an update, just like this. Hey, update these 2 fields and we're done. It can be, bring me back 1,000 line items. People are using this to calculate quotes of battery storage, for example. 15 rows need to come back. Profitability by line item. So you can do any calculation that you would ever want to do. Right now, your choices are pretty much, you're locked into formulas and Apex. Here's another alternative. You simply call the spreadsheet, it runs as a service, you can do it. It can either come from a button or you can call it as an actual service through an API. Okay, did we get this thing back?
Yep.
We have 7 minutes, so let's take a quick look at data migration and then pop open the designer and just show you what one of these apps actually looks like.
Okay, so I got my Excel back. After doing all the synchronization, but I lost the connectivity in between. I'm going to connect to the same org again. I closed all my Excel sheets. I'm going to try to open the same migration app again.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost my connectivity again. Okay, hopefully it should be faster this time because it synchronized the pick list.
While that's happening, I'll talk a little bit about the designer so when people can see it. When you are creating any kind of one of these templates, you can decide exactly what object structures you want to use. Do you want to do a one-to-one to one-to-one to many? Do you want to do one-to-many to many to many? You can create any sets of things. You can reuse the same object as many times as you like for different purposes. Remember that one of these workbooks is just a set of menus for an end user or yourselves to use. So you can set up 20 menu items. Each menu item can pull different data. It can override what's already there. It can populate different parts of a workbook. You're optimizing the user experience both for yourselves as developers, admins, and for end users. Do we have everything back?
Yep.
We do. Okay.
Okay, so as is done, I'm just going to quickly cycle through and show you it has got a ton of sheets in here, which is all created automatically by XAuthor. You can, at this point, use a template. I'm going to use one of the most complex functions we have. I'm going to pick 5 or 6 bundles. And this is one of the highest level objects. Again, you would have your own custom objects. The example of account opportunities and context, you would start with account. At this point, when I pick certain 5 or 6 bundles, what happens is the deepest hierarchy in these 34 objects is about 11 levels deep. It's going to fire about 36 different queries. And notice that some of the objects which are the same objects, but because they are self-connected, they're joined to itself, we split the data out into different sheets, and we get the parent first and then the child, which needs to be referenced to the same parent again. And at this point, I got a lot of data down from Salesforce across all the 34 different sheets. I'm going to not cycle through each of them. But the idea here is not only to export it in one click, and clicking this button essentially ensures that all the external IDs that's going to cycle through all the sheets, ensures that all the external IDs are all set for all the objects, kind of makes it ready to be migrated to the next org, because we obviously don't want to end up creating duplicates. So external ID based migration, you can use external ID of your choosing, could be an SAP identifier, could be external ID which you created in Salesforce. I'm just going to quickly save this, call it some name, and this essentially is the export. This is what in a data loader, connecting the IDs, getting the data all connected, probably would take you at least a day to do it, if not more.
So let's not go through the whole save process, because I do want to pop open the designer.
Okay.
Suffice it to say, pull the data from all the objects. You can set up the queries, sequence them in any order. Every query, as you'll see, and Pranav will open up the query action in a moment. It's all point and click. We're actually driving the SOAP. We make the connections across all the objects. You can determine which lookups you want to use, but it just does it for you. Literally, instead of going through this one object at a time, it just does it for you. We also have a wizard that we're releasing this quarter, which automatically creates these applications based on you simply selecting your objects, selecting your fields, and deciding which lookups you want to use. Do you want to use recursive objects, parent on parent, etc.? All done for you. Our goal is to be able to set up this type of application that you just saw, 15 objects in 15 minutes, so that you are ready to go. Once you've got this, as you can see, just reusable. Pull it up whenever you want to use it, click it, run. You want to hand it to an end user to do product migration from dev to test, whatever, it's safe for them to use. They are now clicking a button and doing what you would ordinarily do. So you centralize the templates and then you distribute them to users.
So now let's talk how these apps kind of come into being. How are they even created? All the things that we talked about, all the different things we showed, including macros, actions, sequencing. This is the first starting point where you decide what you want in an app. And what we're showing is very simple, couple of hierarchies here. Some of the objects are from the Service Cloud. Some of them are custom. Some of them are managed package objects. All objects. This is just Salesforce and a different representation of your data. How you want your layout to be. Do you want them to be represented as a list? You right-click and change them as a list, or as individual. This is the default configuration anyways. So this is step one. All what you do right after this is drag and drop them in a map. So if you open a map here and drag and drop a field, that's all you got to do for mapping anything. You can take any field here, list or individual. Just to show you, I'm going to drag proposal name right here. That's it. And maybe the record ID if I wanted. And that's all I need to do in a map. Save map is where you get a gating process. You don't want to save everything you retrieve. That's where you can save data. You can have some fields which are generated in Xauthor, or rather in Excel, and going back, because they are some kind of calculation using standard Excel formulas or macros. But what I want to spend some time, we're not going to go through all the actions, which are all essentially workflow actions, which you drag and drop, or just configure them in your action flow. But I'm going to show you configuration of one of the actions, because what we want to show you is this is a tool where you can build some advanced query. These are the same objects which you selected, but I'm going to build, you can build 20 of these filters. I'm going to show you how easy and how sophisticated it is to build filters like this. You can easily take, okay, I want to take all line items where extended price is greater than, I can just give a number over here, or I can build another query, and I obviously have a choice to do filter logic, what we are used to doing with and or, complex and or, nested. Here is where you can connect things together, which will be very interesting. Let's say I want to take opportunity, and notice what is happening here in the sections on the right. It says I detected it's a lookup, and I can connect it to an input of another query. So here is where you connect the inputs and the outputs of different data sets which are coming in. And here I want to say query equals this, or you can even use if opportunity was of the type list, you can use it as an in clause. So we got full operator support. Let me show you another quick thing, how the hierarchies which you saw earlier, how we can jump from hierarchies to hierarchies. For example, there is no asset here, but asset is a lookup, which XAuthor automatically figured out. It's one of the objects you care about. When you click on it, you just jump to a completely different hierarchy and can keep going. And if the object is not there, it's going to tell you that go back to Salesforce object and add it. And at this point, if I do something like this, notice that I am jumping. It's quite complex, but I'm just going to still say it. I went from line items to the related asset, to its asset line item, to the account sitting on that line item, to its industry. And then if I wanted to either choose one of the industries, I can choose an in clause, not in, or even better, I can give a user input. When the user gets a box to select, so here I can say user, whatever he selects, give him a multi-select option. So those options which you saw earlier when we were selecting opportunities and whatnot in the apps, those are something which were configured in this query engine very quickly.
Okay, last thing. User. Can you just pull up one action flow?
Sure.
Just so that everyone sees. So here's what's happening. Just use that one, that's fine. Here's what happens. This is a renewals app. The user needs to select an account, so they get to select one. Then it says select an opportunity, or many opportunities. And based on those, then run a query. Go get me my assets, my asset line items, my entitlements, everything. Just do it. Don't even tell the user. Just happens from that one click. It pulls all the data down, and once the data is displayed to the user, then go and execute 2 macros that you might have written, either to reformat or put some other columns, whatever it is that you need to do. So this is how the product works. I think you will find it incredibly interesting and useful if you give it a try. It's a complete alternative to what most developers are doing today, but I think we're out of time. I really appreciate your time and attendance, and if you need anything, we're at the booth, or just go straight to xauthor.com, send us a note, contact us, and we'd be happy to help you, walk you through some training, give you some more use cases, and many, many other customer examples about what people are doing with the product. Thank you very much.
Thank you.